Welcome to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. This is your go-to source for practical advice and support while you go through the divorce process. Join us each weekday for a quick chat where we'll cover a variety of topics such as child custody, property division, and self-care. Together, we'll explore emotional, financial, and legal aspects of divorce and help you find the best path forward for you and your family. Here's your host and Certified Divorce Financial Analyst professional, Mike Fulkerson.
Hello and welcome back to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, financial advisor and certified divorce financial analyst professional. And today's topic on the relationship series, or, Mike's relationship series here, is one of just, you've already gone and filed for divorce. You're going through the process, whether you're at the beginning, middle, or end of that process. It's still a lot of gray area and stuff that goes on within that as far as just a relationship change. I mean, sure, you're on your way of getting divorced. Or perhaps you're just in a normal relationship that's not married and you figured out, like, you know what, we're ready to move on. This hasn't got the long-term future it once had, unfortunately. So when you look at it from the standpoint of going through the divorce process, and you're going to go through a lot of emotions and a lot of perhaps frustration, maybe even anger. Sometimes it's relief. You really don't know until you start exploring those parts. And if you got kids, yes, it's very challenging because they're going to have their own set of emotions and own set of parts that are going to go along with that. And I'm going to cover the kids piece in a future video. Right now, it's one of those where, hey, let's take a look at, what caused the relationship change. Let's start processing and getting some of that mental work done as you're going through the process itself. And the process itself, a lot of times, is grueling. I mean, it is a grind. The legal process is not something that makes it easy. There's a lot of nooks and crannies that have to be looked at and covered, and then negotiations with everything you got in the house and between you and your spouse, whether it's finances or personal items and property. All that stuff is going to get divided. And at the same time, somebody's probably looking for a new residence and where they're going to live. So you're going to have a location change as well, in addition to your relationship change. It's already coming. And none of it is good or bad. It's just the situation that you happen to be going through and what you're in. And you really want to just try to take it one day at a time. And then as you process and move on, during this process, I mean, it's going to kickstart it and push you forward. It's like, all right, you're moving on. You're going to be looking at things like, all right, if I have kids, how am I going to get the routines? What's the parenting plan? And getting all that settled with your future ex-spouse. And so there's a lot of changes. It's going to take a lot of mental power. You're going to be tired. I recommend a nap every once in a while. I think they're totally underrated. But when it comes down to it, you're going to want to be fresh and a clean space and mind and stuff as well, because this relationship change is a big one. And in the end, you're likely to be better for it. And, you've probably heard the term a number of times, but you're going to be building the next best version of you. And that's important because you are moving on and you've got to give some thought to, what does it look like when I come out of this thing? When the divorce is over, where do I go? Who am I, kind of thing? And it's always easier to look back and kind of analyze things, things you'd have done differently. I would have done things differently. Doesn't mean the outcome would have changed per se with the individual that you got a divorce from. Sometimes you're just incompatible, and those incompatibilities just get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger each year, kind of thing. So, but when you look back, you can analyze, and then looking forward, you can go, I would like to make these adjustments in my next relationship that I think will help maybe perhaps find my forever person and also enhance the relationship between both people. So there's no right or wrong. There's no magic pill on relationships. There's no book that has all the right answers, kind of thing. You kind of got to build the relationship on the fly. You got to fix yourself and get yourself in a good space before you can help somebody else get in a good space and maintain a relationship. So a lot of things going on as you're going through the divorce process, a lot of things you're thinking about. But it's already started. It's already kicked off. I'm going to go over some more pieces, parts in the relationship series here in the next few episodes kind of thing. And hopefully something sticks. Take what you like, leave the rest. And, if you have questions, need assistance, I'm happy to help. You just got to reach out to me, leave a comment or email me. My contact information is always in the podcast. And with that, I would like to thank you for joining me today on this episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I hope you are doing as well as you can, given the circumstances. And just know that, many of us have gone through it before and we've come out okay, and you will as well. Have yourself a great day. Hello, and welcome to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, financial advisor and certified divorce financial analyst professional. And today's topic, really, we're going to get into part kind of like the next phase of the relationship series, and it's moving on. Now, we've already forced things to move on because you filed for a divorce and you're going through the divorce process, and that's got you well on your way. So then, what is it that moving on can do for you, and how does this work during the divorce process? Because I'm sure you've given it some thought before you got to the divorce process, and looking to get out of it. So when you look at the moving on piece, when you're going through the process, it's going to be very hard and tricky to see, because I think the most challenging piece of the whole divorce, whether you're considering it, going through it, or it's over, is the going through it part. There's a lot of legal hoops and turns and things you got to go through in order to make things work and fit things together with your future ex. A lot of decisions that have to be made, a lot of negotiations on how property and parts are going to be divided, parenting plans if you have kids. And so there's a lot of decisions going into the process itself. But while you're there, you also have the moving on piece. I mean, if one spouse hasn't moved out yet, they might be moving out. Are they moving into an apartment, into a house? How much do you get the kids involved? Really, keep the kids looking like, hey, we're still a team. We're still working on this together. Let's keep the family continuity and make this as smooth and as seamless as possible. So when we look at moving on, a lot of times during this whole going through the process bit, since it is very draining, you're also going to look at leaning on your friends a little bit. And so getting their support to help you, because it's, like I said, it's a draining process. So anywhere you can get support and assistance is fantastic to help you keep a clearer mind for making good choices as time goes on. Whether you stay friends with your ex-spouse, whether you have a clean break and it's just like, hey, you do your thing, I do my thing, totally up to you. But you have to kind of decide, because that's going to dictate a little bit about how your moving on is going to take place. I mean, if you're having a clean break and you don't have to worry about the other person at all, and that's just on them, then that's going to be different than, hey, you know what, let me give you a hand, let me help you here, let me help you there, kind of thing. And then they're like, well, let me help you here, let me help you there, kind of stuff. So there's no right or wrong. It's not a good or bad thing if you're still friends with your ex or not. Not everything has to be a knockdown, drag out fight. Sometimes just, two adults come to the conclusion like, hey, I like you, I love you, we're good friends, but we're not intimate, or I don't see myself with you long term. Hard choices, absolutely a hard choice, but in the end, both of you are likely to be better for it. And that's important because, life's short, as they say. You don't want to waste too many minutes. You want to, be in the moment and be you and go from there. But one of the challenges probably is always finances. It's going to come down to that. I mean, that's the biggest part of the legal process as you're going through it right now, is just the financials. It's like, all right, how do we make things fair for both parties? How do we take care of the kids if there are kids? And in the end, hey, you hope it's as good as it can be for both people. So moving out, friends, not friends, leaning on your friends, finances, you know, it's a big muddled mess, it seems, as you're going through the process. But I assure you, you'll get through the process. And if you're able to go through and work through some things in your head as you're going through this time, then you'll be able to come out of this a little bit quicker and faster on getting on your feet and making sure that you start the next chapter of your life, kind of thing. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me on Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I'm Mike Fulkerson again, and I'm going to wish you a good day. Take care. Hello, and welcome to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, financial advisor and certified divorce financial analyst professional. And we are in the midst of Mike's relationship series, just coming out of a long-term relationship with my girlfriend. Didn't quite end where we wanted it to, but in the end, we were good and friends about it and stuff. And so sometimes you get lucky like that. And today, you're going through the divorce process, and I'm talking about, kids, family, friends type of stuff on today's episode, because they're all going through the transition in some form or fashion with you. Kids are easy. The kids are smack dab in the middle of this thing if they're, say, younger or school age kids. Older kids, on the other hand, if they're on their own and stuff, totally different setup. I mean, they don't have to worry about changing homes. They don't have to worry about one parent leaving and being out of the house kind of thing, because they've already left the house. So you're going to have a completely different conversation with your older kids on their own as you would with younger kids who, say, are in school, because that's going to have a direct impact on them. They're probably wondering, where will I go to school? How will I see both of my parents? Things like that. And so as you go through this divorce process, and you might already be done with it, but it's the parenting plan. You got to work with your ex to come up with a plan for each of the, for the kids, as far as when you'll see them and who's paying for what and how, you're going to be as a family unit going forward. And so it's completely free for you guys to set up however you like. Don't necessarily have to be the way your neighbor did it or a friend did it. You guys get to decide how it's going to work. All right. Now, when it comes down to, say, older kids and explaining the situation, they've likely maybe had relationships on their own. So you don't really have to go into great depth or detail. They get the picture. They kind of understand. They may not like it. They may be like, wow, that's a shock. But in the end, they're likely to tell you they just want you to be happy. Life's too short to just, waste years and time of, being unhappy. So, and you know what? Great segue into friends, because friends are going to be like that too. They're going to be like, hey, it's important to, be who you are, be happy, figure out your next phase of life and move forward. And friends are great for helping with that, even during the divorce process. You're going to lean on them. Whether it's for venting or them helping you or watching your kids or whatever things friends do at this stage is going to be very beneficial. So at the very least, maybe you go out for a nice meal or something just to break up the monotony of being at home. And then lastly, I got down as family. So depending on your family relationship with your siblings or your parents, you might have to reconnect. Or you have a good relationship and nothing really changes other than they're all about, just getting you through this as best as possible. So, a lot of times family is a great support system already. And, you may find yourself actually seeing them a little more through this process. So, and they may make comments about it like, wow, geez, haven't seen you this much since you lived here, kind of thing. But all in all, there again, they want you to be happy. They're there to support you 100%. And I'm always a big fan of utilizing the resources you have, whether it's friends, family, what have you. Maybe you need to seek, professional help with a therapist. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in a future episode. But in the end, you're going through the process. You're going to get through the process. and you're going to come out the other side a better person a lot of times. That's going to do it for this episode of Breaking Ties Destination Divorce. If you have questions, leave them. Happy to do what I can to help you and assist you, kind of thing. And with that, I hope your day is going well. Hello, and welcome to Breaking Ties Destination Divorce. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, financial advisor and certified divorce financial analyst professional. And this series that I put together is basically Mike's relationship series, coming out of a long-term relationship with my girlfriend. Just gives me good food for thought on how to share and look at information. And today's topic is really going to center on self-care. I've become more and more of a proponent of self-care as time has gone on. I mean, as a young fella, not so much, but as time has gone on, self-care, not just, actually there's multiple forms of self-care, and you're looking at things from exercise to diet, nutrition, to sleep, to mindfulness techniques. All of them are going to come into play as far as helping you become a better decision maker through this process, because you're in the thick of it right now. You're going through the divorce process, and there are tons of decisions that have to be made. And the real downside is if you make a poor choice or a poor decision because you're not mentally sharp, that could haunt you for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because it's extremely hard to change things once the divorce agreement is finalized. So making sure you're in a good, clear headspace is important, vitally important. For yourself, if you have kids, those decisions are even, just as big. And you're going to want to take care of yourself and figure out what's the best techniques for you. Now, when you're deciding on what works for you, start with what you already enjoy. Whether it's hiking, biking, indoor activities of some kind, exercise, going to the gym, but then you incorporate things that might not be part of what your normal regiment is. I mean, the meditation is a very good thing. Looking at just different ways and things that you don't normally do in your day-to-day to help you relax. What is it that brings you down? What is it that lets you sleep at night a little easier? Because it's very stressful. This process is not designed to be easygoing. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of negotiations that's going to take place with your ex-spouse. And ultimately, you're going to want to be at the top of your game as you go through the process. So figuring out what that is, how you're going to take care of yourself, really is important. And I just can't stress that enough. And, as you're going through all this, you're also going to start breaking yourself down and analyzing yourself and finding out more about yourself. So when you get through this process, you can then begin the healing process of, getting back to who you are. And that is another form of self-care. So all this processing is going to help you with decisions right through the meat of this process, divorce process right now. And it's also going to give you a head start once you come out of the divorce process. So hopefully you got some things that you're already doing. And if not, I encourage you to, find other ways to help you relax and figure things out. Sometimes it's as simple as just finding a friend to talk to, being able to just dump. Sometimes it's journaling. Hey, you know what? I need to get this out so I can review it and see and make sure I'm still making good choices and smart decisions. So that's what I got for today. I hope you're doing all right. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Breaking Ties Destination Divorce. Should you have any questions, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help. But all in all, I wish you a fantastic day. Take care. Hello and welcome to Breaking Ties Destination Divorce. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, financial advisor and certified divorce financial analyst professional. And today we're kind of winding down the Mike's Relationship series. And what I'm moving on to today is being in the right headspace. Okay. And that's not necessarily a self-care thing. That's not necessarily Looking back at my notes here, a moving on kind of thing. It does take both of those spaces, but the right headspace encompasses everything. It's like, okay, not just going through the process now, but how are you breaking down that, the process of your relationship not succeeding? Do you go back and analyze it, look at it, look at inflection points, if you will, on where you could have done different things at a different point in time, because sometimes you can't see it at the time, but it's always good to learn from what you had. Because if you're looking for a new relationship going forward after this is all said and done, and after you've gotten yourself in a great headspace and filled in all the blanks for who you are and who you want to be, then you don't want to repeat past mistakes. You want to be able to be self-aware to the point where you can actually make the changes and adjustments, and that will allow you to have a more successful relationship going forward. Does that mean the next relationship is going to be the last one? Not necessarily. In my case, we had a long-term relationship with my girlfriend, but in the end, we decided to part ways. Sad, not a lot of fun, but the reality is we're both going to be in a better place for this, and we can continue to look for the next, person we wish to be with. And that relationship might be the one that lasts forever, and it may not. And so part of it is we don't know, but what we do know is ourselves, and fixing ourselves and working on ourselves. So that way, when we reach that point of maybe looking for a new relationship, we are in the best space we can be. And so focus on how you're processing things. Look at, what you can do to better yourself, and move on from there. I mean, the divorce process itself is very grueling, so you may not have a lot of time right now to put in on yourself. You may just be hanging on because of all the choices, decisions, kids, parenting plans, moving, talking to people. I mean, it's a whole number of things you could be doing. And so this part of it, of the right headspace, might have to wait until you're done. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There is no rush, but it's also good to just keep the end in mind. It's like, all right, let's do this. Let me start working on myself. Let me get back to who I was. Was there things I'm not doing now that I enjoy? Maybe I had to give them up. Maybe I gave them up voluntarily. Sometimes it's, just getting back to who you are and getting back to what you enjoy to start making yourself the next best version of you. So with that, I thank you for joining me today on this episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. Should you have any questions, reach out. Happy to help kind of situation. And I do hope all is going well for you. Take care.